All right, this is JPEG Raw, show number 173 on March 24th, almost the end, not March, May 24th, almost the end of May. And it is starting to get hot here, down here in Atlanta. Riley, you're up in Canada, aren't you?
I am, yeah, up here in Western Canada, Calgary, Alberta.
Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on weather, but what's the weather like there up this time of year?
We've had a really nice spring. We usually don't. We just had the May long weekend, which traditionally it snows on, but it was only raining this year, so I'm quite happy. I don't know, it was like 15 degrees outside. That's Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
I don't know that conversion either. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. I know we had this scheduled a while back, but an emergency came up, and we're glad that you're doing better and then come on the show, because I've been wanting to talk to you about this. We've talked to Pat David about alternative software a few months back, I think it was. And this is a topic, as I mentioned before, this is a topic that I think that I would like to touch on, on a regular basis. Not every show, just like weddings. We can't talk about every other show about weddings, but it's something that I think the average photographer probably doesn't think about, probably doesn't know about, probably thinks my only option is a Mac or a Windows-based software like Adobe. That's really what they're going to look at. They may think there are alternatives like On One or some of the other plugins you can get like Topaz or something like that, and that's really the extent of our of what we got. And anything else, I've run into people before that they think anything else like a GIMP and that's probably the only other product they know is GIMP. They've heard of GIMP.
Yeah.
Is that the only people who use that are people who run Linux, and and that's really what it's meant for, is those people who run Linux. So hopefully tonight we're going to dispel a little bit of that.
Okay. Yeah.
I've dabbled with Linux over the years. I've loved to spin one up into a virtual, and I run Windows. I'm now on Windows 10. And I like to spin, Ubuntu up. I've tried Fedora. I've tried other things in virtual environments, and I love those. And my router is a FreeBSD-based router running pfSense. I've been a huge fan of pfSense since early days. I love pfSense. Anybody who's looking at building their own router, that is an awesome piece of software. And stable wise, I'll go. The only time I have to reboot it is when we lost power for 6 hours. My battery backup didn't last that long. It was like on day 400 and something. So and then I do run a Linux server called Unraid. I don't know if you've heard of Unraid.
No, I haven't heard of Unraid. No.
I've actually got rid of all my Windows servers. I was running 3 Windows servers, got rid of all the Windows-based servers, and now just run Unraid. Now I'm a huge fan of Unraid, and been with them for a long time too. So if you're looking for massive storage, a lot of photographers need a lot of storage. It is a great piece of software. It right now, if I go look at it, I think I have 34 terabyte available of total storage and 16 free. So I use the heck out of that, and it runs just rock solid. So I like talking about and hearing about alternative stuff. Actually using it's a little bit more of a challenge, but I'm really interested in what we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
So why don't you, before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little about you and your photography background before we start talking about some of the alternative software? Okay.
So currently, for almost 6 years now, I've been working at a university taking photos, which is probably a little different than maybe what your other guests are doing. Like I have a regular 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job taking photos. So I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I don't have to promote myself. I've got like an actual salary. I have paid sick days. Like it's things photographers don't usually have, right?
Right.
And in the job, it's a fantastic place to be taking photos. Like I've met astronauts, I've met Olympic athletes, I've been in a helicopter flying over the campus taking photos. I've seen recently, I watched a doctor perform brain surgery using a robotic arm where he's got like 3D glasses on and he's using mechanical hands. Sometimes it's just fun stuff with students on their first week of class. They're getting dressed up, they're dressed up as sumo wrestlers, they're wrestling together, having fun games. I'm in a lot of different labs. So there's a lot of variety. It's a lot of work, but it's a great gig. And I actually come from a photojournalism background. I went to school for journalism and I majored in photojournalism. So I used to work for a weekly newspaper, and I also worked with a modeling agency. And then eventually I started doing contract work for the university, and then slowly that turned into a permanent position. So really my work is mostly a lot of portraits, environmental portraits, and events kind of stuff. And generally I take photos in crappy light. That's what I think my job is. I show up in some lab, the light's horrible. I only got like 10 minutes with this researcher, and I've got to get a good photo and turn it around the same day or the next day so it can be published online or other places as well. So I have a full-time photography job. At home, though, I've been running desktop Linux for years, and that kind of began my transition. Where at the office, I am running a Mac, and I'm actually able to use some open source software there. But at home and all my stuff on the weekends and evenings, that's all open source software.
Okay, so the university is mainly using these photos online or advertisements or something like that, and
so a wide variety. The vast majority of it is online, and people might not think of it, but universities we generate a lot of news. Our researchers are making advances, so that's a news story. And what will happen is we publish first on our website, right? So let's say I show up in a lab, I've got this quantum scientist, he's doing some interesting research on quantum key distribution or something, and that runs on our website. Well, then other newspapers, either locally or internationally, see that news story and they want to run it. So then my photos will go to them and they'll get republished there. Actually, all the photos that I take, they go up into a content management system that over 100 different people across campus have access to. So
you can check
them out. I don't even know where. Yeah. And they'll use them, right? So let's say I take a photo for a story on a website. Well, 2 weeks later, I can be walking down the hall and there'll be a digital display and my photo's up there. Or I walk by in the hallway and I pick up a brochure and my photo's there. Or it ends up being published at a newspaper somewhere else. So
that must feel repurposed. Good. That must feel good.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. It feels good when it's a good photo. When it's a photo I don't like, getting republished, I'm like, oh, why that one? Why that photo? But most of the time they're good photos and I'm happy. So
isn't that the case where photographers, other people, they have different grading scales than what we have? Mm-hmm. I think we're always, especially a good photographer, is more critical of their own work. Mm-hmm. And, what you may look at and say, oh, why'd they publish that one? They may look at and go, oh, look at the emotion. This is a great image, and not see exactly what you're seeing. But I understand what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome, Tim.
Hello.
Hi, Tim.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know my microphone, nothing is working. I got to get it to select the right microphone. So there we go.
Okay. So Tim's coming in, and Tim, Riley, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
So Riley was, so I never really, I saw that you were working at a university, and I think I saw something else where you're talking about working at the university. I never realized there was that much photo work going on. My son right now is a junior in college, and I see the images on the website and that kind of stuff and think, those are some nice images, and they don't update it but maybe once a semester. So I didn't realize there was that much work going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize it. There's no way, personally, there's no way I can meet the demand. There is one other photographer on our campus. He takes great photos as well, but he's kind of limited to actually digitizing archives for a library and such. So to have one person on a campus of over 30,000 people, there's tons of work for me. I never have to worry about coming into work and going, oh, I got nothing to do today. Today I had 3 photo shoots. Tomorrow I have 3 photo shoots. Usually I don't get more than 4 because I'm often off campus too, going back and forth and driving. But
that's awesome.
Most people, when they're thinking about what can I do as a photography career, nobody ever thinks, oh, well, you could actually work at a university as a photographer. It never really comes across.
You're our first guest to ever be doing this. This is great.
Yeah.
Do you get to shoot any sports, or is it all non-sports photos?
That's a good question. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't do any sports. Okay. I may get a few kind of practice games or some at the beginning of a season, but they do have a contract worker that gets to photograph the football games and whatnot. But
what about
I have a passport.
What about any like behind the scenes? Maybe you're somebody's doing an article on a player, and you get to take the photo, like a portrait session of that athlete, and do anything like that?
Yeah, that'll definitely come up. Yeah, I've definitely done portraits of our athletes. I usually have some interesting story. Maybe they've overcome something, they had difficulty with their heart, but they ended up, going on to win an Olympic medal or something, or
Right.
they started their own little business or something related to sports. But yeah, absolutely, I can do portraits of athletes, but I don't get to do the games, which
Yeah.
I think is fun and challenging. It's a whole different kind of photography for sure.
It is. It may be nice if you could do it if you wanted to, but not have to do it.
Yeah.
Or outside of that, when you get home, are you tired? I'm tired of photography. I need to relax, or do you do any personal photography on the side?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll definitely do my own photos on the side. Like it's great, during Monday to Friday, I'm getting paid to take photos, and then on the weekend, I might still go and shoot photos because I still enjoy doing it. But I started a YouTube channel. I write a few articles, and I made a photography course, so that eats up my time. And I often tell people, I'm this rare photographer that's not available for hire. Like people will see me out taking photos, and they're like, "Oh, do you do portraits? Do weddings?" And I'm just like, "No, you can't hire me."
Yeah.
Like I get paid during the day, and then my evenings or weekends are my time, and
Exactly.
so I don't take on any other jobs. So it's
I
kind of nice.
I don't know if we have the same reasoning, but I look at photography as totally a hobby for me, and I don't want it to do any photo shoots for somebody for money. So I've had people ask me, "Hey, can you do my senior shots?" And I say, "No, but I know some good people who can. Here's their names."
Yeah.
I will go and shoot a friend's child's sports event, but for free, and only that child. When I get there, I'm not doing the whole team because I want it to be a fun event for me that's stress-free, that is my passion, not a job from that standpoint. So I can understand a little bit where you're doing that all day with your job, and you want your time is your time, and your photography outside of work is your photography. Yeah, totally get you.
I think you'll be much happier if you continue that. I think of not doing monies or taking photos for money. It's a lot of people go down that route, and then unfortunately, it's kind of sucked the joy out of their photography after a few years of dealing with clients and so on. But,
definitely can, yes. Yeah. So, the main topic we want to talk about tonight. Well, before we do that, people always ask. So let's just get this out of the way. What gear do you shoot with? And I'm not asking what's in your camera bag. That's later.
That's later. Okay.
Yeah. Canon, Nikon, Sony. What are you shooting with?
So I shoot currently. I have two Canon 5D Mark IIIs.
Okay.
And I'm generally working I have the two bodies. So on one body, most of the time I have a 24 to 70 millimeter lens, and then I have a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I also recently picked up a 16 to 35 as well. And actually, my preference is Nikon. But again, I work for an employer, and they purchase my photo equipment. And when I got there, it was Canon. And in the beginning, I was supplementing. They had a decent Canon camera and a bad Canon camera. So I was using one Nikon of my own and one Canon. But eventually, they've upgraded the equipment, and that's what I'm shooting with now.
Okay.
They're both quite good. I don't know if you have a particular preference.
I'm a Nikon. Tim is a Sony, and everybody. It's like Ford and Chevy. Although I don't have either one of those.
Right.
You pick what you like, and the reality is they're all great, and it's the photographer that makes the difference. Okay, so the main topic we want to talk about is open source software, and some of them in particular. Have you always been, or are you running Linux right now? We're talking to you on a Linux machine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all my computers at home run Linux. Yeah.
Okay. And what version of Linux? What do they call it? Distro?
A distribution.
Okay.
So I'm currently running Fedora, Fedora 23. I used to run a lot of different variations of Ubuntu, which is very popular. It's very easy to use, and there's a lot of support behind it. So it's a common distro for beginners to try out. Fedora, I think, is a little more challenging to get installed if you haven't used Linux before. But I've been very happy with it. I really like Fedora quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay. And so have you always been some version of Linux user, or were you ever a Mac or PC guy?
Yeah, so I would have started with Windows. And I never had like any kind of, like I didn't get persuaded for the open source philosophy or anything. I wasn't like, oh, I hate Microsoft, I really need to switch. It was just one day I was watching a video on YouTube, and this was back in like 2006, 2007. I thought Linux was like DOS. I thought it was like a terminal with just some text and like nothing else. But then I saw a video online, and they had like virtual desktops, and they were making their windows transparent, and they had like all these cool effects. And I'm like, oh, I'd like to try that. I'd like to tinker with that. And I started playing around with it. And then eventually I partitioned my hard drive. So one half was Windows, one half was Linux. And then slowly as time went on, it just became, I was spending all my time in Linux. So why was I even keeping Windows around? And then eventually I switched full time. I do still have to use a Mac at work where I use both closed and open source software. Maybe one day I'll be able to bring my Linux box to work and go that route. We'll see.
Yeah, and you know where I've used it. I mentioned before where I've used it, and I don't know, Tim, if you've used it this way, is in a virtual machine. You know, both if you're a Windows user, you can, and I guess a Mac user too, you can use something called VirtualBox, which is free. And in VirtualBox, you can run all different operating systems, and you can give Fedora, you can give Ubuntu, or there's other distributions too. You can give those a try if you want to dabble in Linux. Yeah,
that kind of made it easy in the beginning too. Like back then, I didn't realize you could run an operating system off a CD and try it out. Didn't even have to install anything. Or now you'd use a USB as well. But it sounds like you're a Linux user as well. You've got that server going up running Linux. You're running PCBSD on your router. This is you're hardcore, man. You're almost one of us. Just give it time.
I am. I love my router. I have. And if you where Mike got started into podcasting is because he wrote an article called "The Super Router." And I'm not talking about one woodworking router. This is like your home router. So if you ever want to, do a search on super router, you'll probably see something like Geek Accountant or something like that. That's me.
Okay.
Or Mike. And it was supposed to be a 4-part article, and I only did one part. And something happened and it got diverted. But I've been a big fan ever since. And if anybody wants to talk about great storage solution that can grow with you, email me at podcast@jpedro.com, and I'll talk to you about Unraid. I'm a huge fan of Unraid, which is Linux-based. I'm not sure which version of Linux is the core, but it is Linux based.
I'll have to look it up. Maybe it's Red Hat. I'm not sure. I'll check it out.
Yeah, you got me. I don't know. I won't be able to figure it out while we're doing a show.
All right.
But okay, so you did have a background with a Mac or a PC. I've
used them all. Yeah. I've used Windows. I've used Mac. Yeah.
And so you've used Adobe products, Photoshop, Lightroom. Do you still use those for work, or are you 100% open source software even at work?
No, I use both at work. I still use Adobe Lightroom. I would switch to Darktable full time at work, but sometimes with open source software, it's kind of like Linux is a first class citizen. Like it runs way better in Linux than it does on Mac. And Darktable, it does have a Mac version, but unfortunately I can't enable OpenCL, which would mean I can't use my graphics card, right? So there's a big performance hit. And because I'm turning over photos so quickly, right? Like I'll be at an event, I'll shoot a couple hundred photos, I turn them around, I go off to a portrait session. Because it slows down my workload, not being able to access that part of the hardware, I tend to go with Lightroom. If I'm having a slower day though, and I'm just editing some portraits, I'm using Darktable for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to say, all my other stuff, whenever I'm at home, at the weekends, the evenings, it's all Linux. Yeah.
That OpenCL problem, is that a PC issue also? You said it's a Mac issue. Is it a PC issue also?
So Darktable doesn't have a Windows version. There is no Darktable runs on Linux, and there's a Mac version, but there is no Windows version.
Okay.
But it is open source, right? So the code is out there. And I'm not a software developer, so I can't speak for them. I think it's just they all run Linux. This is their hobby. They make it for Linux, and they just don't have an interest in using, making a version for Windows and supporting all the Windows users. But the code is out there.
Right.
And I think there is somebody online, I think he's on Google+, who has built Darktable for Windows, but there's no official version for it.
Okay.
Which is odd, I'm sure, for a Windows user, because you're used to having all the software, right?
We are used to having all the software. And, you like I mentioned before, you could do something where you have Linux, some version of Linux, and Linux is for most cases free. You could run that in VirtualBox and run it that way. But I know a lot of our listeners, viewers, are Mac users, so this would this is an option for them.
Yeah, exactly. They can try it. A lot of photographers, it seems Mac seems to be the default for many photographers. I can understand the Windows route though too. I mean, if you want a proper desktop with some good hardware, well, Mac doesn't offer it, right? But anyway, that's maybe a different conversation.
Well, the other side of Linux, and one of the reasons I'm a Windows fan and always stayed Windows, because I build my computers.
Okay.
I have never bought, since the 80s when I built my first one, never bought a PC. I've always built them. And with Linux, you could do that too. You know that is definitely an option with Linux. You can do that. I just entrenched into the Windows world. And so we mentioned Darktable a number of times. Darktable is the alternative to Lightroom, right?
Yeah, that's a fair way to describe it. I mean, they're not exactly parallel, but they're both raw photo editors. Yeah, very comparable. Absolutely. They have a photo management section. They've got their non-destructive raw editing. Yeah, very similar programs for sure.
It'd be better to compare it to Lightroom than it would be to Photoshop, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you are editing raw, though Darktable has more features. So things that I would, that's what's actually very appealing to me about Darktable. For some people, their workflow, they need Photoshop all the time. Like I think, I don't know, a month or so back, you had Danny Diamond on here. Yeah. And if you look at his work, okay, he's going to have to use Photoshop, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of people who can get by on just Lightroom.
Oh, yeah.
And you're doing landscape, you're doing events. There's a lot you can do just in Lightroom. And I know for me, if I have to leave Lightroom, I have to export my raw photo into an inferior format, and then I have to use another program like Photoshop or GIMP. And I hate doing that. I want to be in raw all the time.
Right.
And because Darktable has more features, I can stay in raw the whole time. I don't have to export and use another program. That's a very compelling feature for me, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I don't know when's a good point to put this in here. Maybe we can do it now because you did a video for us on Darktable, and we'll have links to your YouTube page and your website where you have some other training videos on various open source software, including Darktable and GIMP, I believe, also. Yeah. Right, and you did one recently on raw download, some kind of raw downloader.
Yeah. Rapid photo downloader.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an application that'll download photos from your camera or your memory card, renames them, create subfolders, and so on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me queue up the video. Oh, go ahead.
Should I set up the video? Like,
yes, you should.
Context here.
Yeah. Once you set up.
So I just I thought if I'm going to come on here, we'll be talking about Darktable, and they don't really get to see it. Something I love about it, like really what's awesome about Darktable, is the ability to do your local adjustments or selective editing. Right. I don't know, do you do yourself? Do you do much local adjustments or editing? Do you use like the brush or no? Do you just do global edits?
No, I do some of that. Yes, I do that.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're kind of limited in Lightroom. Like let's say somebody has a red face, right? Some people get their skin gets really red, and there's also some other red parts in the image. Now in Lightroom, you could go in and you could reduce the saturation in the red, but it would be across the whole image. You can't say just limit it to the red on the face and leave the other part of the image alone. Whereas in Darktable, you can. And you'll see in the video here, basically it shows instead of just having a brush to make selective edits, there's a lot of different options that you can do. And so, yeah, that's what the video is about.
Okay. All right. Well, let me cue up the video. It's about 4 minutes long. While that's playing, we're just going to focus on that. You won't be able to hear us. Hopefully, if I do this right, you won't be able to hear us. All right. So let me cue that up. Well, hold on. I did it wrong.
I wanted to make a short video to give you a little demonstration of a feature that I love in Darktable, and one that I think is far better than Adobe's Lightroom, and that's its ability to make local adjustments using masks. Now, if you've used Lightroom, you're probably familiar with a brush tool similar to this. It's circular, it's got a feathered edge, which you can adjust. You can adjust the opacity and so on. And this is pretty handy. It's quick and easy to use, and if I'm going to mask something circular, like maybe the baby's head, it's great. But you're really limited to that and a graduated filter in Lightroom, whereas in Darktable, When you come across things that have a straight edge, like a square, buildings and so on, if you try to mask in the corner, a circular tool doesn't do the right job. You come in, you make it smaller and smaller and smaller, but you really can't mask that corner well. However, in Darktable, we have an awesome little option here, which is a path tool. And now this is very similar to something you'd see in, say, Adobe Illustrator, where you can make any path, any shape you want, and you can also do it with straight edges. So you can mask squares, you can mask buildings, you can do so on, and you can do it really, really easily. That's something that I need to do in Lightroom all the time, and I can't, and it's really frustrating. You're not limited to straight edges. I could actually come in with that path tool and maybe just do a quick mask around the baby's head or something. Any shape you want, really, and you can always come in afterwards and adjust the edges and how large or small it is and so on. So that path tool is very, very handy. Moving on from there, there's even more ways to mask in Darktable that are far better than Lightroom. And that's instead of selecting an area with a brush and just kind of painting it, you can actually select a part of the image based on its hue or its luminance, how bright or how dark it is. So in this image, parts of this hockey rink here, parts of the ice, it's a little too bright and I want to bring the exposure down. Now, if I was using this brush tool, it's a real pain because I have to work around the hockey players and their shadows to try to get it just right. It really doesn't do the job well. And that's where parametric masks come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select an area of that ice based on how bright it is. And I'm just going to give a little reference point there because I want that part of the ice to be affected, but not other parts of the image, not the mountains, and so on. So you can actually see it. I'm actually just going to turn on the overlay. And right now the entire image is being affected by the mask. Everywhere in yellow is part of the mask. But I can come in with this slider and just really quickly and pretty easily just select that part of the hockey rink that I want. So the players aren't being selected, their shadows aren't. Very quick, very easy, and so handy. I really love that. Now going even further, there's still more features with the masks in Darktable. Let's say, so you can see because the ice is bright, and also behind the clouds here, the sun was there, and that's also bright. But let's say I only want the hockey rink and that snow back there to be affected. I can also combine masks. So I can take that parametric mask that I just made, and I can combine it with one of those masks that I just showed you before, where I just quickly draw it with the path tool. And now the only thing affected is the hockey rink, and the sky's not being affected above. Again, awesome feature. The masking is just brilliant in Darktable. I can go even further with this. Another feature that's not in Lightroom, sorry. And I really wish it was there, and it's surprising. Very simple. I just want to be able to invert a mask from time to time. And here I just push a button, and now every other part of the image is being affected, but not the ice. I push the button again, I invert the mask, and now it's just back to that hockey rink, the hockey rink. So again, just really fantastic masks in Darktable. I won't go into it, but I did mention briefly, you could also mask images or parts of an image based on its hue. So I think in this image, I selected just the orange part, and you can see it there with the mask. Now you can do something a little bit similar in Lightroom, but it is limited, but that's something for another video. Anyway, just wanted to give you a little quick introduction to one of the great features in Darktable if you've never seen it before.
All right, that's a great video, Riley. Nice.
Yeah, thanks for showing that. I just thought it'd be great to actually give you a visual demonstration of something that's available in Darktable that you don't see in Lightroom. And you probably noticed right at the beginning there, something that just boggles my mind that isn't in Lightroom is you just have that brush to do the mask, right? The circular brush.
Right.
And like when you're taking photos, there's squares, there's rectangles, there's buildings in your photos, right? And being able to just like do straight edges, like once you have that functionality and you go back to Lightroom, you're just like, really, Adobe? You couldn't do this? You couldn't do this one thing? Like,
they got to save it for the next update.
Well,
well, the Darktable's probably had it for a while, so I don't know what's going on there. But that, when I saw that too, it's like, wait, why don't we have that in Lightroom? That is such a basic thing. It seems like such a simple thing to add, but so useful once you have it.
Yeah, it seems so fundamental. And then as I moved on to the other ones, like I think it's much more kind of an advanced user kind of thing, but it's fantastic. Being able to select an area of your image, not just by like, painting an area, but going, all right, all the parts of the image that are at this level of brightness, I want to select. All the parts of the image that are this hue, this particular orange, this particular red. Being able to select things like that it's awesome once you start doing that. It opens up a lot of doors. And again, like I said before, it means I don't have to export and go into GIMP or Photoshop to do that kind of selective editing. I can stay in my raw photo editor, and that's what's so appealing about it.
And now yeah, that's awesome if you can stay in there, because anytime you go out of, isn't it when you go out of Lightroom and over to Photoshop, you have to convert to TIFF or something like that? You can't stay in RAW.
Yeah, exactly. You can't stay in RAW. It's got to be some kind of, like you say, TIFF or a JPEG or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what does it have the same image cataloging and you know, those kind of things? Where, well, let me tell you what I do. So when I bring in, when I go to a shoot, and most of mine are like sports or something, let's say a sports event, and I come home with 1,200 photos. I pull them up.
Do you come home with 1,200 photos?
I do.
That's okay. That's cool. Hey, shoot as much as you need. Hey,
depends on
whatever it takes to get the shot.
Depends on the event. If it's a swimming event, it's going to be 1,200 photos because it's a long event. If it's a basketball game, it's probably going to be 500 or so, but it's still a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
And so in Lightroom, what I'm going to do is pull them up, and I'm going to use the X and P. You know, P for flag, X for discard, and discard doesn't mean delete, but it does that, and then it advances to the next one. Does Darktable have some mechanism for culling the images? You know, paring it down.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could import all your photos. You take your 1,200 swimming shots, and you could give them star ratings if you want to do it that way. Okay. You can also do like a reject option, like go through and reject them. They don't have specifically like a pick like they have in Photoshop. Yeah. For me, I would just rate them like, 3 and 4, and then when it's a pick, I give it 5 stars kind of thing. Okay. And then you start filtering them out the same way you can do in Lightroom, like hide all the images that are less than 3 stars or less than 4 stars, or get rid of all those rejected images, and then just show me, the rest of them. And then, you can call again and narrow it down more and more. So yeah, you can definitely do that for sure.
Okay. And does it have the same key, like a keywording functionality and that kind of thing too?
A keywording?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I always tag all my images with keywords and description as well. And that's actually like a really important part of my job. Like it's amazing how much time I have to spend writing up cut lines, putting in descriptions, because I know my photos are going to be used by other people. Yeah. So I need that information in there. But yeah, I store a bunch of keywords, and then you can start narrowing down your collection. Like just show me portraits. Show me portraits from 2015. Show me portraits from 2015 of men or women, and filter your catalog. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't think about that at first, but if you're shooting for a university and you're putting them into an LMS or CMS, a contact management system, CMS, where other people are going to use it, that keywording is even more critical than the keywording that we do for us personally.
Absolutely. In
my company, we've been looking at that. We've been looking at taking all these photos that have been taken all these years, and none of them, most of them are, actual photos, so we got to scan them. So none of them have any keywording. And it is, if you're starting in the hole like that, it is a daunting task to get caught up.
Yeah, and you say to yourself, tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, because it's so hard. But if you don't do that, the usefulness of those photos you're taking by other people is diminished. That's critical. Okay, so anything in Darktable that you feel is missing that I can do that in Lightroom, but I wish they would add this to Darktable?
So one feature for sure, and I wonder if Darktable will get this in the future. When you have people who are wearing clothing with like thin kind of lines or checks on them, you get moire, you get that effect, that distort. Adobe's Lightroom does have an option. You can pull out a brush, you can get rid of the moire. I can't do that in Darktable. There's got to be one other one. I think recovering highlights in Adobe's Lightroom is definitely easier. You can do it in Darktable and it's fine. It's just not quite as easy, I would say.
Okay.
Maybe that's it for features. Actually, the other thing is Darktable, it gets rid of noise really well, just like Lightroom does.
Yeah.
But it's not automatic. Like you can make presets, you can make it automatic, or at least the best method. And it's a little more resource heavy in Darktable than Lightroom, I find. So that's another reason why I'm not using it at work as much, because I take so many photos in low light that the extra step to do the denoising adds more time onto my workload.
Okay. Darkroom is free, right? Is it free, or is it donateware, or what do they call that?
Darktable's free in price. You don't have to pay anything for it.
Okay.
And it's also free, like as in Freedom. The code is open source, so you can go in and make modifications and whatnot.
What about, one of the things when you're working with raw photos is anytime a new camera comes out, you got to have a new whatever you call the raw profile, or I don't know what its official name is. And that's a lot of the updates that happen to Adobe Camera Raw, which Lightroom and Photoshop use, is adding those new raw profiles. Is Darktable able to keep up with all those new cameras that are coming out? How do they address that?
So it's the same thing. So if you think this is more of a community project, right?
Right.
So if a new camera comes out, somebody's going to use that camera, or you could even rent it if you need to, or say you buy it, and you could just submit a sample image to the developers, and then they'll come up with that needed profile. I've never had to do it. Like when I get a camera, and it's the same camera for like 3 years.
Right. Me too.
I don't usually have like the new hotness. Like I'm not running out and grabbing, whatever the latest and greatest is. But yeah, it's the same thing. So like, I don't even know what the comparison time is. Generally, open source is faster because you can go right to the developer, contact them, and they can send updates right away. Whereas in closed source software, you're always just waiting on Adobe to make that change and whenever they want to roll it out.
Right, which is easily a month behind.
Is it?
I just think about how often you get an update from Adobe and it'll say on there, these 10, 15, 20 cameras have been added. So if you're adding that many, they're not putting them out as it comes out.
Yes. So yeah, if you're using Adobe, you buy that new camera and it doesn't work, you can't do anything, you just wait. If you're in open source, you could submit a photo and, hey, can you guys add this to the program?
You mentioned something that I really like, and that's one of the reasons I like the software we use to produce the show, vMix. I like the other software I use is access to the developers. Often us Lightroom users feel that our concerns are no one's listening to us. Because the sea of people is huge, so getting your voice heard is difficult, and that's where a lot of Lightroom users get frustrated. But with open source software like Darktable, do you have that same feeling, or do you feel you have more access to people that can make a change? And they're not going to make every change that you come up with, but do you feel like you have more influence and more people are listening to you more with that?
Oh, it's a world of difference. Like you can't even imagine once you tried it. A little while ago, I fired up Darktable because I was going to make a YouTube video, and I noticed there was something missing after the latest update. So I didn't have to go onto some forums. I didn't have to, try to make. Well, I don't even know if you can call Adobe. I know the name of the guy who's managing my package for Darktable, and I could be like, "Hey, man, you're missing this. Oh, sorry. Fix the update. Bam, it's fixed." I've been on forums where they made an update and I think like I exported an image, it was a TIFF or something, and the default resolution wasn't 300 DPI, which really doesn't matter. It's really about the pixels. But I was saying, hey, can we make the default 300 instead of 72 or whatever it was? Next update, there it is. Like that.
Wow.
That never happens in Adobe. You can't contact a Lightroom and developer and be like, hey man, can you fix this?
No.
Like nothing, never. And so you're always kind of at the.
I gotta tell you, when you sound like you sound like it. Whenever you have that influence and somebody's actually listening to you, it is such a great feeling.
Yeah. And like you say, I mean, they might not take in all your ideas, right? Sure. But you can at least contact them and have a discussion. Hey, I think this would be a really good feature, or why did you make this change? And they might be like, well, we think it's a good change because of this. But just the fact that you have direct contact like that, it's crazy. Like, right. And I mean, it could also be negative. Like if you put up a video on YouTube about, Photoshop developer's not going to contact you. But an open source developer might be like, hey man, you made this comment about my software, and they can access you directly about it.
That's true. Yeah. Hey, one question from Chuck out in chat. He asked, if the RAW is not supported yet, does Darktable support DNG? I know that's an Adobe format, but did they?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm pretty sure they do. I don't know for sure. I don't use DNG. I use the directly like raw files. I can't answer for sure. You'd have to check the Darktable website. It would probably tell you right in their documentation there. But that's a good question, actually.
And this is one thing where I know DNG is supposed to be just like RAW. Tim converts all of his to DNG.
Right.
Okay. I am still stuck on. I feel like I'm losing something if I give up my RAW. So you know what happened to me, Tim? If I converted mine to DNG, I'd have to keep both DNG and RAW. And now I'm just doubling my hard drive space on everything.
What do you have to keep it?
Because
for yourself.
I just have this feeling that DNG is not really raw. And I could not be able to convince myself. And if
I convinced myself, and I am happy with it.
we can do a whole show on that if I knew more about it.
I like the idea that D&G is supposed to be this open format that
Exactly what it
standard.
is.
But nobody uses it. If my camera shot directly into D&G, that would be fantastic. But they all keep these proprietary formats, and you got to convert them. And I don't know. I'm with Mike. I feel like you're going to lose something in that conversion. But I hope they say you're not. I guess I just don't trust it myself either. I don't know.
I know there was a camera at one time did support DNG natively, but now I can't think of who it is, and I'm searching it. I'm gonna find it. I know there's a manufacturer that did.
Well, it obviously didn't catch on, Tim, or else more people would be doing it.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so another thing you can do in Lightroom and is create presets. So, user presets. I could create a preset. I could share it with Tim. I could buy presets if I wanted to, or people freely share them. Or can you do that in Darktable where I can create a preset myself? And if I can I share those with someone else?
Yeah, so you can make what they call styles or Darktable styles.
Okay.
So maybe you have some split toning you really like, or some kind of effect that you've done. You can save it. You can send it to a friend. You can even send your entire edit to somebody else, right? Because it's just like it's sidecar files. It's not like Lightroom where you have the separate catalog. Yeah. So you could send me your raw photo, and I go, oh, here's my edit, and just send you a tiny little XML file, and you can see my whole edit. But yeah, you can definitely share presets. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I've created some. I don't use a ton of presets. I almost have to do them each one individually. I know some people are big on presets, though. Okay, so anything you have done? If I can find it here, let me cut us over to your webpage. Now I gotta be able to see this. Lessons. You've done some training videos, right, on Darktable?
Yeah, I created a photography course last summer. So in the proprietary world, if you're using Adobe and you want to find some tutorials on Photoshop or Lightroom, you've got tons of choices. There's a lot of different photographers selling courses, I'm sure you know. Whereas in the open source space, there aren't many at all. Right. There's a course for GIMP. There's, I may be the only one who has one for Darktable. So I definitely wanted something where someone who's new to Darktable could sit down on a weekend, watch a few hours of videos, and get up and running really quickly, instead of trying to go through like a lot of really technical documentation online and so on.
Yeah, so you have two courses here, is that right?
It's the same course, but I provide two formats. One is a completely open source format, right? So there's no proprietary codecs. You don't need to install anything like that, which is important to members of our community. I prefer that format myself as well.
Okay.
But I also have the popular H.264 MP4 format.
Okay. So $50 for the course, and what all do you get with the course?
It's 5 hours of videos, tutorials. It's all structured really well. It takes you kind of from the beginning, but it also gets fairly advanced. So, right from the beginning of you're new to this user interface, you don't know how to use it yet. It takes you through just kind of how to work with the software, and then on to actually editing photos. And I kind of provide like a process, like this is how I approach it. Like first your white balance, then your exposure, then you're, kind of going through a list and how I do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So 5 hours of video for $50. That's not bad at all. And you also have some videos over on your YouTube page too, including one here that's something about JPEG to RAW live interview. But I've watched some of your Darktable. You have a Darktable one, a few here. I watched some of those too, and very professional looking videos. So you get an idea of what you're going to get with that 5 hour video by watching these.
All the videos also all done in Linux, all using free open source software, which again most people don't care about, but people in the Linux community, there's people out there it's important to them. I also donate 10% to a few different open source projects of the profits. And recently, after doing my taxes, I found out I also donate 30% to the Canadian government. But that's a different story. But.
Yes, we have that down here in America too. So it's important for photographers to know, we spend a lot of money on our gear, on our computers, on our software, all that kind of stuff. Is alternatives, now for a lot of us, if you're going to use Adobe products, the only option is a subscription option. You can buy Lightroom separately. For now, at least, you can buy Lightroom separately, but you can't buy Photoshop separately. You have to now rent Photoshop, and in some ways, that's not necessarily bad, because if for $9.99 you have Lightroom and Photoshop, but you also have to pay that every month forever. So if that is an issue for a photographer, or if you want to say, hey, let me look at some alternatives. What are the alternatives? GIMP is a good alternative to Photoshop, and now Darktable, we've talked about tonight, is a good alternative to Lightroom. And both of them being free. GIMP does run on Linux, Mac, and PC. Darktable is Linux and Mac.
So, and PCBSD.
And what?
PCBSD. It's like the desktop version of BSD.
Okay.
Anyway, there's a tiny small people running out there running it. Anyway.
Yeah, and I actually ran BSD in a virtual. Whenever you first get VirtualBox, you want to try everything. So I ran it.
Yeah.
I ran it in there a little bit too. Okay, that was great overview of Darktable. Thank you for the video. Thank you for coming out. But before we head out, we have a new segment we want to talk about with you. Is what's in your camera bag?
Okay. So I mentioned earlier, I'm shooting with Canon. And I think a lot of people out there, they want the new hotness. They want the latest and greatest camera all the time. And I think you should really get the most use out of your camera before you move on to the next one. If your old camera still works, there's no reason to go out and buy the latest and greatest. Some people like a backpack. I'm rocking, I should go, maybe I can see here. It's kind of like a classic leather case here.
Wow.
Leather. It's not real.
Looks like a big binoculars case.
This right here is, see if we can see that.
Yeah.
That's the Canon XT, early 1970s, maybe mid 1970s, but it still works. So no reason to get rid of a beautiful camera like that.
Now, is that actually always in your camera bag, or just for tonight?
You don't think I'm shooting film every day, Mike?
I'm not going to question you. If you say you are, you are.
Well, let's see, Mike's not here. Sometimes I want to be in the photo too, so you can set a timer on the camera. So that'll just plug in to the top of the camera. We'll see if it actually gets in focus. Maybe it won't. Oh, well, there's a little dial, and you can set it to how many seconds before the shutter fires.
That's cool.
That's a mechanical timer.
That's a mechanical timer, yeah.
Cool.
If you want to remotely fire the shutter, you can use that bad boy right there.
You're using that on a digital camera?
No. No, this is my grandfather just gave me his old photography equipment, so I thought I would bring it out. It's pretty classic. And this is a really nice little lens case. Like, it's
Look at
this little leather old school case.
They definitely don't make them like that anymore.
No, not at all. And it's a really snug fit. Like, there's no real extra room on there.
Yeah.
Cool. Not a Canon lens, though, unfortunately. I don't know. Maybe it is. And when you're ready to upgrade, there's a Canon AE one. And I think that was the one that came out after the TX there. I'm not sure. I know. I'll show you my camera. I was just...
No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
So actually, just like an hour before the interview started, I was at a photo shoot close to my house. So I still have my equipment. Usually I leave it at work. That's the Canon 5D Mark III. That's my 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I never put a lens cap on there. I just have filters on top.
Yeah.
Some people are recently saying you don't need the filters, but I've dropped my camera and I've had 3 of these break or scratch, so I always just use a filter on top.
I brought one. Yeah. What type of filter? Just like a UV filter or a skylight or something?
Just a UV filter, yeah. And I always, so much of my photography is off-camera flash. I'm showing up in a small location. I don't have a lot of room to set up lights. So even though I actually have some more powerful, I have a Ranger Elechrome Ranger 400 watt light or whatever. Mostly I'm just using camera flash with some kind of modifier, and I have some pocket wizards to trigger those flashes. And I usually have a light modifier, like a shoot through umbrella. I've got like a little, I don't even know what you'd call it. Firefly is the brand. I forget. Oh, a strip bank, like a little strip bank there.
Okay.
That's kind of the most of it, though. Those two main cameras is what I use every day.
Wait, those two main cameras.
Oh, you need to see the second one?
I was going to say, are you really using that film camera?
No. There's the other 5D Mark III.
Okay.
I do like this lens a lot, that 24-70, just for the work I do, being able to pull out wide and still zoom in. And 70 millimeters is enough to do like a nice portrait as well. Though I obviously prefer the telephoto for doing a lot of portraits like that.
On the Nikon side, there's something called the Holy Trinity, which is the 14 and 24 to 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200. Is like, you know, the Holy Trinity of Nikon lenses. You just showed two of them. I don't know if Canon has that same Holy Trinity.
What was the third one in between the 24 and the 70? What was there?
There's the 14 to 24.
14
to 24.
70, 72.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are beautiful lenses. Actually, I used to shoot Nikon, like my personal equipment. I still have an old Nikon D300, but I don't upgrade it because I have my employer's equipment. Yeah. But Nikon lenses are gorgeous. Like I honestly, I miss the lenses on Nikon.
Well, you have two. You have two of the three of the Nikon Holy Trinities. You have two of the three right there. You have the 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll talk to my employer and say, hey, I need the Trinity.
You need,
What's going on, man? This is
somebody misplaced the third one. Where is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we may have to reorder it. All right. Well, anything else? Is that?
In the camera bag, you want me to dig in further?
No. You don't have to. I cut you off. I wanted to make sure we were at the end here.
No, we're good. Oh, I take out some stuff. I don't know if you guys, do you ever use a color calibrator for your camera, like a color checker passport or something?
I haven't used that, but I've used a Gray Card. I actually have one right back behind me here.
Okay, sure.
Right, that's what I'm going to use.
I just use a Gray Card. You've used the color checker before?
Yeah, I think like for me, because I go into so many different environments of like sodium vapor gym lights to a lab where it's like mixed fluorescent lighting to, all these different lighting situations. And I found that color checker passport just helps me get accurate colors. It's fantastic. Gray cards are nice. You can do a custom white balance, but that's definitely a part of my workflow for sure.
Speaking of those sodium lights, how do you, because that is probably the hardest and most challenging photography that I probably deal with. When you try to take those, anything indoor, like basketball pictures or something, those are just horrible lights.
Oh yeah, awful.
How do you deal with those?
Well, I mean, I would try to keep it, there's not much you can do. I've seen people show up with battery packs and a flash and try to bounce light off the ceiling in a gymnasium. And I'm like, that's just not going to work, sir.
No, it ain't going to work.
Obviously, it's going to be crappy lighting. So if you have a full frame camera that does good in low light, that's going to help you out. And honestly, like that color checker passport, it brings out the colors. Like I get much more vibrant, accurate colors by going into that gym beforehand, taking a photo of that passport, and then creating a custom color profile just for that particular gym. It would be worth looking into. I would say try that out.
Okay.
The problem I've had in gyms is the pulsating lights.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't get a constant color. Your eyes see one color, one brightness. But if you start taking, like if I'm taking a picture of a basketball player and I'm shooting off at 7 frames a second, and I shoot 3 shots. All 3 shots are at a different exposure. Like, what happened? The first time you shoot that, you wonder what happened, and you look at your settings, and they all look like the same.
Camera's broken suddenly.
Yeah, yeah. There are some cameras now. I think the new Nikon D500, which actually will compensate for that. Which actually won't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it doesn't shoot at those dips in the lights. I don't know how they do that, but somehow they do that. And I think the Canon does that now too.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. Well, Riley, thank you for coming out. We got a few things we need to cover here at the end. We'd love to have you back on at some point down in the future because, like I said, I'd like to continue to cover open source software and alternatives to Adobe and some of the other, Windows and Mac programs that are out there. There's a whole other world out there to explore, for people to explore.
Yeah, I think if there's any kind of walk away here, like I think a lot of people have misconception about Linux and what's available and whatnot. And for years, we didn't have good photography software. I was trying to run like Photoshop through virtualization and stuff. But now the open source software in the photography world, it's getting really, really good. Like I think the raw photo editor is better than Adobe, though GIMP isn't better than Photoshop. So if you just shoot raw images and you're curious about switching to Linux, go for it. You've got a great opportunity now.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so we'll talk sometime in the future, maybe have you back on. But until then, I got a few things to go over here at the end. One is, Tim, I'm going to show it. I got an iPad here.
You keep showing that every week. It's Mike.
And Tim knows that I am. Oh, actually, hold on a second. I got a problem because I actually have the show pulled up on here. How do I stop it? There we go.
You'll be in a never-ending loop suddenly.
Yeah. So we now have the the iOS and the Android app for JPEG to RAW. So just go to the iTunes store or whatever you Apple people do, and you can go and get the JPEG to RAW app. What you're seeing here is little thumbnails for the YouTube videos. They'll shortly, in the next few days, be one for this show. You also have access to, if you don't want to watch the stuff because maybe you are in limited bandwidth, these are all the same icon, but this is the audio version. So you can listen to it if you want to listen to it that way. I'm showing you on a tablet, but you can do this on your phone too. And then there's even the new thing we started with, what's in your camera bag. This is only video. And so that you have that there. And this is available, like I said, on the iTunes store and also on Android. So you can get it on your Android phone too. That's where I have it, is on my Android phone. Just go out to Google Play or go out to iTunes Store and you can get it out there. If you are going to buy anything from Amazon, that's how Tim and I are able to do the giveaways and able to do some other things. I forgot to bring down my book. I got my book from our previous guest, Eric Stensland. I got my book arrived this week, and I forgot to bring it down here, doggone it. But if you're going to buy Eric's book on Amazon, or you're going to buy anything on Amazon, it doesn't have to be photography related. It can be anything. Make sure you use our link, jpegtoraw.com/Amazon, before you go to Amazon, and then we'll get a small credit, and we'll use that to do giveaways or to do contests or whatever, especially a year-end photo contest. And speaking of that, if you want the easiest way to enter our photo contest, we do one every month, that it doesn't give you any money. Only the year-end one has the money. The easiest way to enter the contest every month, and we're wrapping up here on May. We only got a few days left in May for the enter, is to join our Facebook group, which is Facebook.com/JPEG2RAW. Come out there. We have getting close to 1,800 people, I think, in the group. And we'd love to have you come and join and contribute, ask questions. Lots of people out there who know a lot. Lots of people who don't, who ask questions. So, feel free to come out there. We do have a beginners group if you want to join that. It's not as active as that one. And speaking of not as active, is the forums. I'm not going to let that thing die. Even if I'm the only one.
Where are they, Mike?
Huh?
Where are they?
jpegtoraw.com/forums. If you go to jpegtoraw
/forums.
If you go to jpegtoraw, you will see a big link that says forums. And really, if you want to use it for anything, that's where I put the calendar of who's coming up next. You could have saw that Riley's coming up tonight. I have a little calendar thing where I have Riley's coming on, a link to his website, a link to his YouTube page. You could have gone and found out a little bit more about him before the show starts, and you can see who's coming up, because I put that out there for you people to go see. And you can join the forums and post there too if you want. If you don't like Facebook, some people don't like Facebook, there's 3 or 4 of you. You can go out there and you can join us in the forums. Because Tim's never out there in the
No.
forums or in Facebook.
I was actually in the forums the other day. I didn't post, but I was actually in them.
Well, very good, I guess.
That's a start for me, I guess.
So if you came in late, or like I always say at the end, if you left early, do you not hear me? But if you came in late, you can get this show, the recorded version of this show, in video format on iTunes, YouTube, and Vimeo. You can get the audio version of this on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podomatic, Podbean, and now Google Play Music. So just about everywhere. And if you are, have a set-top box, a TiVo, or what was it? Rumio? What's that little set-top box? Apple TV, whatever all those things are, you can get.
Yeah, I know. Not Roxy,
Roku. That's what it is. Roku.
Thank you.
You can get us through the YouTube channel, or maybe the Vimeo, but definitely the YouTube channel, and watch us on your TV if you want to do that. If you're going to watch us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. We'd love to have you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And that's it. That's all I had, Tim. Anything I'm forgetting before we head out?
No, I think you covered it all.
I have a list here. We didn't do Facebook Live tonight. We're going to try that again at some point. We may even try at some point to do Facebook Live and YouTube. But we haven't given up on Facebook Live. Just kind of do a few more things to check that out. It's harder to tell people where we're going to be when you do Facebook Live. There's no place for them to sit and wait for us to come live, like Jimmy was tonight, where he was able to chat while we were waiting to come live.
And I was going to say, it's harder to do chat in Facebook. That's the other thing.
Yep. All right. Well, until next week, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.